particular matter. We did see, skirmishes here and there. We saw cases where people were brutalized. The one that's fresh in our minds, the lady who had part of her face, destroyed, and she was bleeding while she came back up to vote, to cast her vote, and that's why many people would look at her as the new face of democracy. But I'm being joined right now via virtually by a former deputy director of the State Department of State Services, that's the DSS, and he's going to be talking with me about the security situation and what needs to be done, what needs to be fixed between now and Saturday. That's the weekend. Mr. Dennis Amachree, good morning. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Amachree. Can you hear me? Mr. Amachree, can you hear me? Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
It's good to have you join us. Good morning.
All right.
Yes. So let's start by doing a deep dive into what happened over the weekend on the 25th of February 2023. Now, for especially Lagos, you saw some of the things that happened, the threats that were being meted out on the average voter in Lagos. We saw the heads of parks and garages management, MC Oluomo, at a particular polling unit, warning people, a group of people who he said were not willing to vote for his party and his candidate, to go home. We also saw a government official in Rivers State who also came flanked by security agents, telling people who were not going to vote for the APC to go home. We also saw where ballot boxes were snatched. We saw young people with guns in Ikorodu shooting directly at voters. And then you saw the lady whose face was half, I don't know what they used on her face, but she still came back to vote. These are just a few of some of the things that happened. And for an election that was long awaited, and we canvassed for people to come out, and there was a great turnout, there was so much enthusiasm. What do you think was responsible for that kind or that level of insecurity?
Well, thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
As we progress, we continue having new kinds of threats that are coming into play. Because this particular election, people were very, very ready to, the enthusiasm was very high. And we believe that a lot of people will come out, and actually they started coming out. But you can see that the general turnout was very low, because some people went there, they were there from 6, 7 a.m. and then until 10 o'clock, there were no INEC people, and they have to go back home. And then, of course, the police that is supposed to maintain that 3 concentric circles whereby voters are going to be protected, they didn't do a very good job about it, because we discovered that people were being wounded, they were shooting, and the whole of Nigeria, I think, if I'm very right, we had only 23 people arrested, which is infinitesimal, or should I say, does not exist. So I think there should be more seriousness, when it comes to next election.
Just to not to drag you back, but just to points to other issues, because you talked about the number of people that were arrested. There are people who are still asking why certain people are still walking free. And also, I know that you're not in charge of the police, but a police officer was caught on camera, national television, telling people that, he can't tell the difference between an infant and, an adult. And I'm talking about underage voters here. And he also said that there was nothing that they could do, because if INEC have given these children PVCs, then he cannot tell them not to vote. And this is an officer of the law who probably in this case does not understand what the Constitution says about some of these things. And these are the same people who are going to be, enforcing the law come election day. What kind of magic are we expecting to happen? Because you see, just as you've said, this should not repeat itself. But what's the guarantee that that will not be the same thing that will happen?
Well, there will be no magic. There will be no magic, but we'll find out that there are some officers who are very, very offbeat. Offbeat in the sense that the original directive have been given. That's what we'll be saying also, even with the politicians. They will go and write a peace accord, and but down the line, you find out that their followers or people who believe in them are doing something else, becoming very, very rascally. And then, of course, the worst part is where the police will throw their face away and look the other way and not do anything about it. Because how can you say that you don't know the difference between an infant and an adult who has a stunted growth? So I think that's why many people were saying that, okay, the police themselves were compromised. So a lot of compromise happened in the last election. And I hope that as we move into the next one, people will bring out those issues and then discuss them, especially the Inter-Parliamentary Consultative Committee on Election Security. Should sit down and talk more about all this kind of stuff.
Let me bring to your attention now, for election duty, that there's a story that says that staff of the Police Service Commission are currently stranded at different states of the Federation where they were deployed for the elections due to the non-payment of their allowances. So now we're talking about the welfare of these security agents who are supposed to also protect our polling units. If these people are not being paid, where's the encouragement that will drive their commitment to their jobs?
There will be none at all. There will be none at all because, in fact, I saw, was it in yesterday's paper or today, where the police was threatening to go on strike if the allowances are not paid. So I think the police hierarchy should please, for the sake of Nigerians, take care of these people. Because I know that the government has taken care of the security agencies in preparation for the election. And then, of course, INEC has also, looking forward to the protection of the security agencies. But if these ones are having their own grudges, then the glitches are going to be more and more.
Let's look at recently the police commissioner in Lagos called certain stakeholders to a meeting, somewhat to have more like a parley as to how the elections will pan out. We've heard the police read riot acts, tell us the number of people they're deploying, and assure Nigerians that people will be safe. But let's look at what the Electoral Act allows, and the number of police officers that we have already in the country, and the number of polling units that we have. And if they were to deliver on safety, how possible will it be? Now, we also have paramilitary agencies, we have other uniformed agencies. How do these people come together to help, with the security situation around our polling units? Because, for some people, they were lucky to have the army pass or patrol around their areas to come to their aid when they were hit. But for some other areas, there was no police presence, no security. How do the polling units for people to want to even come out to vote?
Of course, you know that it's impossible for the police alone to police all the stations that we have. And, we have suggested that a strategy, if they can use a particular strategy, and that would be mainly patrols and quick response. If they could use that kind of strategy, yes, they could cover a whole bunch of areas. But when you are not doing that, and you see just a few policemen who are not armed at the polling station, and that is how it's supposed to be. But if they are running into trouble, they should be able to call up for backup. from the next line of action, the second ring of protection, and if that one is becoming very, very difficult, they can call in the third ring, which is the military, but we don't see a coordinated effort where this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is an area that before the next election, I think we better sit down and look at this because Nigerians are growing. The apathy is getting too much. We don't want a situation where out of a country of more than 200 million, only 20-something million will be voting our leaders to rule over us.
So we have so many problems on our hands. Unpaid allowances. They're not sure of getting those allowances anytime soon. These guys are on the verge of protesting. We also have a deficit of police officers to police all the polling units. We can barely tell if these other security agencies can even suffice. And we also have the average voter who's worried, sick because of what most of them had experienced or what experiences other people have had that they've seen that might, one way or the other cause some level of voter apathy. Let's not forget that from statistics, the number of people that came out to vote this year is way lower than what we had in the last election cycle. And this is due to several other indices, including insecurity. With all of this on the plate, and INEC still telling us that, we're going to use the beavers, but then because the court has subpoenaed these beavers, if we don't get them on time, we may not necessarily be able to upload results onto the beavers. A potpourri of issues, and elections are just a few days away. Why do we take this long to make decisions that will affect us in the long run, especially for elections that we have 4 years to prepare for? And I'm not just putting this on the table of INEC, because INEC is not law enforcement, but this used to be your constituency, sir. Why do we wait till the last minute to plan for these kinds of very serious life-changing situations?
Well, I have to blame INEC. I have to blame INEC because INEC is the lead agency, and then of course the police is the lead agency in security, but INEC is in charge of everything that goes on that day. So these beavers that you've just mentioned, I think that was the most disappointing area that I think we've encountered during the last election. Because everybody put their hope on that beavers. Everybody. People were asking me, I was telling them, look, I has come up with this technology, and I think this technology, it will be very, very impossible, for people to play around with the elections. But funny enough, INEC sabotaged the beavers. They sabotaged it in the sense that they couldn't transmit again. They later could transmit some, and they couldn't transmit some of the other ones and stuff like that. Yes, we have a long time to prepare for this election, but I don't think that there is what we call a security a practice, a pre-election practice where there will be a dry run.
There was a mock there was a mock election that INEC conducted, even though they said that not many people came out, but there was one.
Then it didn't work out well because if there was one, at least they should have pointed out or found out these glitches that they had. Because how can on election day the beavers are not working again, and of course there are so many little things, the risk factor is very, very high, where they don't come early, they don't start early. Some didn't bring the necessary materials that they were supposed to bring. Indirectly, an outsider will look at it and say, "Oh, these people are purposely trying to sabotage the election." So I think INEC has to put its house together because this is not what they promised, you know. And of course, I remember very well where they were talking about real time, transmission by beavers, going to be real time, you know. And for people who don't even know what real time is that as you are transmitting it, they are also getting it at the same time at the headquarters. But this didn't happen. So I think it's a bad glitch that they should correct before we go to the next one, because we don't want a situation where people will start to now riot or protests, you know, because there is how far you can push the public, you know, in certain things, and you never know what could happen.
Let me ask you before we go on a quick break. We have just a few seconds. I'm just going to ask the question. I'll let you answer when we come back. How can we get rid of violence during the elections? And when I'm talking about violence, I'm talking about violence before, during, and after the elections, because this has seemed to somewhat taint the image of our elections, especially across the world. People are always afraid. We see members of the diplomatic corps always calling on us to embrace peace. We see people even running out of the country because they don't want to be here when our elections happen, whether they're peaceful or not. Why do you think that this is, and how can we ever be able to move past this? You will answer that question when we come back on the break. We still have Dennis Amachree, who is a former Deputy Director of the DSS here, talking with us this morning about security and what our plans should be, what we need to tweak to get ready for Saturday's elections. We'll be right back. It's still the nation's #1 talk, news and sports radio station. We'll be back after this break. My name is Maryann Okon.
Talk is what we do.
You know, the youth of Nigeria have historically been apathetic towards the electoral process. There's no way for the youth to participate in mainstream fields like oil and gas, banking, and so on. The youth are actively excluded from those fields. And so we just created our own way in tech.
Informed analysis, reliable and accurate.
We actually advocate you get your eyes checked at least once a year. When you go for an eye check, the routine things they do for you is to check your visual acuity. Visual acuity is how good you see. A lot of us don't actually know that we don't see so well, but because, like I said earlier, we can count money, we think we're doing very well.
Your #1 station for talk, 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. Stay one step ahead with the latest news and trending conversations here on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Don't tell people you've added weight. Why are you losing weight?
Yeah.
Eating. No, it's not your business.
That money, the pass is good. That finally.
You should be patient and pray to God that God is going to answer her prayer.
Please, it is not all about prayer. It's not like everything is not prayer. That is Nigerian mentality. It's not finding happiness in your home. You pray.
Your #1 station for talk. Let's talk.
There is a huge difference between the relative experience of salary earners and those of business owners and entrepreneurs. Someone who has never had cause to set up a business of his, who has never had cause to source for funds, turn it around, pay salaries, pay back the loan, and still make profit cannot be expected to be hands-on when saddled with an economy the size of Lagos. Experience that hasn't curbed Lagos's traffic in 24 years of their reign. Experience that hasn't addressed Lagos's perennial flood. Experience that currently leaves us with over 2 million out-of-school children. The duo of Jando and Funke have been investing in Lagos's economy for about 2 decades, running their personal businesses, employing peoples with track records of success. Lagos needs a breath of fresh air. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
Me, I'm not afraid of that man.
Me too.
What can he really do?
I hope you people are discussing about paying me my rent.
Oga landlord, calm down. We are discussing about the upcoming elections.
Nonsense. Don't tell me to calm down. Your mates are at the Akamata Community Square selling their votes for 5,000 naira. but you are here doing what I don't know.
Oga landlord, do you know that 5,000 naira spread over the next 4 years is just 4 naira per day? Is this what we should sell our votes for? God forbid.
Oga landlord, wise up. We must vote in the right people this time, instead of selling our votes to people who have nothing good to offer our community.
That one is your business. You ladies better go and collect yours, if that will help you gather my rent at the end of the month. Do not listen to people like this landlord. Election is not a business venture. It is your civic duty to your country to help elect the right leaders who will create a better life for you and a great future for your children. Do not sell your future. Do not sell your vote. This message is brought to you by the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the MacArthur Foundation.
See, everybody with him own wahala. Every day comes with its own version of challenges, and you have to be ready to face them, because only then can you move on to the next. That's why I never miss my breakfast. Scratch that! My peak protein breakfast with the nutrients and energy I need to face each day, one challenge at a time.
Every day is a good day to power on with Peak Protein Breakfast. Have you had yours? Peak. Reach for your peak.
This Lagos where we dey so, na so complain people dey complain every day. Some people na heavy traffic, some na agberu palava, some market women and women nko na so lock of their market. My people, another opportunity don enter with domot na to vote Gbadebo Rose Vival of Labour Party to become with governor for inside Obodo Lagos. Na be the solution to all our problem. If you vote Gbadebo, the trade wey they don dey do for 23 years, Gbadebo go complete am inside 4 years. Peri job go boku. For we youth, Agberu go disappear on top of we road. No more suffer for market men and women. Your task go work for you. Gbadebo go grow business. Horse driver go enjoy. For we traditional ruler them, Rose Vival go respect una advice. All the civil servants go enjoy. Increment go dey on top of una salary. With Boku promotion, suffer don't do for inside Obodo Lagos. Make sure say you vote Gbadebo Rose Vival. Labour Party na for Baba, Mama and Pikin.
Oh, the only detergent that keeps me bright and fresh. I know they waste time to wash. I thought my clothes have the best, so why go less? You can't wash a lot with a little Viva. Use Viva. Don't waste your time. Don't waste money. Use Viva. Viva, oh Viva. I love my Viva. Don't need no other. I love my Viva forever. Viva, oh Viva. I love my Viva. Don't need no other. I love my Viva forever. Viva, I love my Viva. Don't need no other. I love my Viva forever.
Viva detergent, a quality cleaning powder from Aspira.
At Access, we are 28,000 employees, 180,000 agents, 700 branches, 180,000 connected POS, and 2,883 ATMs strong, serving our more than 52 million customers in Africa, Europe, Asia, and UAE, across 17 countries. With a total asset of 15 trillion naira, we are the largest bank in Nigeria and top 10 in Africa. So, to the determined side hustler, the happy-go-lucky youth, the tech-savvy entrepreneur, the moms and dads with bright lives to build, the market woman with big dreams for growth, the global citizens with their roots in our soils, we are here to stay. Through thick and thin, we stand with you. Access, more than banking.
Ali, these your construction equipment. I hope they are bringing good money.
Things are slow this period.
You should lease them all on the Urban Fleet app and get access to more renters. Get the Urban Fleet app from your app store and on www.urbanfleet.biz.
Moves must be made. My people just to work hard. Dreams and challenges motivate us. But sometimes, when the journey gets tiring, all we need is something to push our limits.
Reactor, ignite your energy, bring out your inner champion. Reactor,
energy drink. What you need to push your limits. Push your limits.
There is a huge difference between the relative experience of salary earners and those of business owners and entrepreneurs. Someone who has never had cause to set up a business of his, who has never had cause to source for funds, turn it around, pay salaries, pay back the loan, and still make profit cannot be expected to be hands-on when saddled with an economy the size of Lagos. Experience that hasn't curbed Lagos's traffic in 24 years of their reign. Experience that hasn't addressed Lagos's perennial flood. Experience that currently leaves us with over 2 million out-of-school children. The duo of Jando and Funke have been investing in Lagos's economy for about 2 decades, running their personal businesses, employing peoples with track records of success. Lagos needs a breath of fresh air. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) will conduct the 2023 general election using the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System (BVAS). On election day, the BVAS equipment will be used to accredit voters by verifying their fingerprints or facial photographs. In each polling unit, every voter must be verified and authenticated before they are allowed to vote. Any intending voter whose fingerprint or facial photograph is not verified by the BVAS equipment will not be able to vote. With this, one man, one woman, one vote is assured. As no one can engage in multiple voting, neither can anyone use the voter cards of another person to vote. After polling, the BVAS equipment will also be used to transmit election results electronically from polling units to the INEC result viewing portal for everyone to see. BVAS will eliminate multiple voting, identity theft, or impersonation. The BVAS will guarantee one man, one woman, one vote. INEC, making your vote count, consolidating our democracy.
This message is brought to you by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) and the Center for Democracy and Development (CDD), with support from the Osiwa Africa Foundation.
99.3 Nigeria Info, your number one station for talk. Let's talk. 99.3
99.3
Nigeria Info. Let's talk. This is Morning Crossfire on 99.3.
Yes, it is the Morning Crossfire on the nation's number one talk news and sports radio station, 99.3 Nigeria Info. 8:35 is the time on the clock, and we still have with us Dennis Amachree. He is the former Deputy Director of the Department of State Services. We know them as the DSS. And we're looking at, of course, we're reassessing the security situation for the country, especially as we head into another round of elections, especially this is within the states. How do we make sure that the same mistakes are not made? And what do we need to do to put an end to this, cycle of violence before, during, and after the elections? And that's the question I asked my guest just before we went on the break. Mr. Amachree, thank you very much for staying with us. Mr. Amachree, can you hear me? We can't hear you. I think
I can hear you.
Okay, great. You were muted. Yes, you were muted. All right. So I asked a question before we went on that break, and I really, because I guess that this is the question that every young Nigerian, even middle-aged, are wondering. How can we get over this situation? Because this is one of the major challenges that Nigeria faces as a country.
I would say that we're progressing. We're progressing because as we continue experimenting on new elections, the situations keep on getting better. And of course, the violent part of it, there will be a time when we don't even have to start going down to the polls to start lining up and all the rest, because You see, our politics is tainted with some kind of original primordial problems like religion and ethnicity and all kinds of things, So as we continue applying technology, there will be a time when we can vote. We can vote from our phone, holding our phone there, and then we vote. Because what's the difference between voting securely than even having your money withdrawn from the ATM? So if you have the right passwords and firewalls, then of course you can go ahead and do your voting. And I think we're moving towards that. So people should at least be patient, and then let's see whether we can work it together. And then, of course, the second part of it is that we cannot just sit back and say, oh, some bad boys are going to come and carry ballot box or something like that. We are more than them. When you go to any polling station, you see that there are more people there than these boys. So we will encourage everybody to have your phone with you. Although they will not let you carry it into the voting booth, but you can use your phone to call the nearest police or military formation. All their numbers are listed before the elections. So I think that's another thing that we should be doing. Not just sit down there and raise our hand and cry. So we should be able to, help ourselves too.
Okay. All right. I'm going to open the phone lines because Lagosians want to talk to you. They want to ask questions. They want to comment on this issue. Well, Lagos, the phone lines are open. We got 12 minutes on the clock. 0700 993 993 993. That's 0700 993 993 993. If you're a lady, call 01465 7190. That's 01465 7190. You can tweet at Nigeria Info with the hashtag Morning Crossfire. That's MCF. Or you can go to our live stream on YouTube and, of course, on Facebook. Just go there and post your comments. We would love to hear from you. Quickly, let's go to the phone lines first. Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Nena.
Nena, go ahead.
And I want to ask, why is it that these INEC officials are not punished when they don't carry out what they are supposed, especially a duty like... what is it called? Election that can cause, like you can probably say it's very dangerous. Whatever mistake in quotes they claim to have done. Do you understand? And then the issue of somebody not handling something well, and we're waiting for him to handle another one. It's so questionable. Do you understand me? You see some courts, you say, INEC official will say, I was giving bribe. And then the politician that gave him bribe is punished, and then the person is allowed to go back to the office to collect another thing. It's wrong. Once they are punished, once they know, even if it's your guy that is telling them to do this, how can you not come to a station 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 p.m., and then we are just stuck? If we are going to start this election like zone by zone, when we finish probably northeast, we do northwest. Do you understand? So that the officials, both police and the INEC officials, will be ready. And then we do it like that.
Okay. All right.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for calling. We appreciate your thoughts. Hello. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Turn off your radio, please.
Yeah, my name is Ngozi. I'm calling you from Isolo.
Go ahead.
Yeah. For me, I feel the whole electoral process was compromised. There is even no reason I feel INEC would have why they wouldn't have used the beavers as they themselves have given as a guideline, and is also in the Electoral Act. Secondly, why would the National Assembly and the Senate upload and only that of the presidency was not able to upload? You watch some of the videos from the core members that worked as ad hoc staff for INEC. You discover some of them did not even have the correct password to those sites. Simply means somebody by now should be heading to jail. But because of the kind of society we live, everybody is just letting it go. It shouldn't. By now, INEC chairman should step aside, and another person should have taken up this responsibility if at all we want to get it right.
Okay.
Police officers are also accomplices to this thing. My own polling unit, police connive with these talks to thumbprint papers. I called on your radio station. I reported on that very day. So they are compromised. The institutions that should be saving the democracy are also compromised in the hands of politicians. So it's a very pitiable state that we are. I really don't know how we are going to get in this time around.
Thank you very much for calling. Mr. Amachree, if people are not punished, heads are not rolling, because that's the term we like to use a lot in these parts. If nobody's foot is held to the fire, how do we even make an inroad if we want to have free, fair and credible elections?
I thank the lady that asked that question, because, you see, that is the crux of the matter. You know, when the INEC officials are not punished, they know. And there is no reason whatsoever. If beavers are not working, why is it not working? Who is the computer programmer on the other end, in the back end, who is doing this? Why are we transmitting House of Rep and senators, but presidential cannot go? And that's the problem with our country here. There is no consequence management, because when people know that there will be consequences, for the things they are doing, then of course they will think twice. But when they do it, nobody talk about it. Even those people they arrested, they've not prosecuted them. After a while, they release them because their political godfathers are going to make phone calls and they will be released. And that is a fundamental Nigerian problem, which I think should be addressed. Because if we don't address this, we'll continue to live with these problems. And then, of course, it will make us, give us some bad names.
Okay.
I'm very particularly worried about the international observers who might be sitting down in their hotel rooms and laughing. This is not right at all.
Okay, let's take a few more calls on this particular matter. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Joy calling from Lagos.
Go ahead.
Good morning, sir. You know what surprised me about all this election process? The way some people you did not even expect will be celebrating evil, wickedness that have taken place in this country. That one trouble me a lot. Those who need to talk that this thing is not right, they did not do this election, they will begin to congratulate. I don't know how we want to continue like this in this country. And you know all these policies they put, the poor suffer a lot till now. And the president is sitting down there. They will continue to suffer till they leave office or what? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy. Take it easy. Hello, good morning. Oh dear, apologies. Please call us back 0700 993 993 993. Oh, apologies if that was you. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Please turn off your radio.
Hello.
Turn off your radio and call me back. All right. When you call us, turn off your radio. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. What's your name, madam? Where are you calling from?
This is Pastor Ladipo.
Pastor Ladipo, Novex.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think we are talking about security.
Yes, we are.
Concerning this election.
Yes, absolutely.
For me, it's just painful and very pity that our security agencies has been compromised to an extent. So the way forward is this. The police officers, I know that Electoral Act does not allow police to carry gun close to the polling unit. But they can still make use of DSS and some of these people who will not be on uniform, but they will be monitoring those elections, especially in those polling units, not on the major express. Because most of these atrocities are being committed in those polling units that are inside before they call security and they will come down it will take time. So let them make use of some of these people who will stay and be eyewitness and see things for themselves. Like in my polling unit, some guys came, took the beavers, and after some time they brought it back. Nobody could stop them. You know why? Because they are holding weapons. So if you have DSS like that, who just disguise, who will be around, at least that will help us a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Ladipo, for calling. Hello, good morning. All right, please call us back. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Please turn off your radio.
Morning.
Good morning. Turn off your radio and call us back. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Mr. Wisdom. I'm calling from Lagos.
All right, Mr. Wisdom, go ahead.
All I have to say is that an election between two parties.
Nobody's talking about the election. We're talking about security here.
What the electoral has is in history. It's a record of history that he conducted the worst election in Nigeria. You should not forget, because Mandela of South Africa said it in one of his statements, that a lady should marry
I'm so sorry. Your line is breaking, so it's not helping us to hear exactly what you're saying. I'm going to take a few more calls and then let Mr. Amachree wrap things up for us here. Hello, good morning. Oh, dear. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Well, I'm fine.
Go ahead.
From Turkey. Yeah. I think the problem is actually the structure we have as a system we're operating as a people.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the police is not enough to be in charge of security in Nigeria. How many police do we have, following top guys? Take them away from the number of police we have. Then you'll be able to know how many that will be able to guide over 170 something police units. And another thing is, when you talk about security, what is the salary structure? A policeman that you're paying 50,000, someone offered to give him 200,000 just for a day job. Don't you think he will compromise? Yes, he will. Even the INEC officials. So we have this fundamental problem. Probably that's why they call us a third world country. Yes, we are. And we are not developing. What is stopping us from voting through the ATM card? Over 200 million people, and only 23 million people is deciding the fate of 200 million people. Is it not funny? We don't even have up to 50% of the population to vote. But I'm sure that over 60 million Nigerians have ATM cards.
Okay.
So what are we saying? We know the truth, but we don't want to do it because we actually, acting and living like a third world country. We are not developing. Okay. Nobody should say we are developing. We are not developing.
We have to take other calls. Your 60 seconds is over. I'm going to quickly take this call and then we'll toss back to Mr. Amachree. Hello, good morning. Apologies. Mr. Amachree, you've heard many people seem to not have any form of trust in this election. There's a lot of trust deficit amongst Nigerians right now because of the experience on February 25. But then the elections must hold and we must go out to, cast our votes. What word of encouragement are Nigerians supposed to hold on to? What's the encouragement? Because I've had to be a motivational speaker all through last week into this week to encourage people to go out and cast their votes.
Yes, the people are right. They are very, very correct because when you look at it, even the police is not enough. The police we have. And we'll be advocating for the police to double its number, at least double its number. But I don't know, maybe because of funds, you can even see during just this last election, allowances to be paid to them, it's not paid. And what stops them, from even being compromised when a politician will come around and give each of them 50K, So that is another problem, and it's an area that we have to look at because let it not be a self-defeating issue that we are into right now. And then, of course, you see, somebody said the people are celebrating even before the results are even announced. Yes. So, yes, don't worry about it. And that's why we say that carry your phones with you.
Okay.
If you see any infractions, take those pictures, and then, of course, when you look at they are going to court, and then the Supreme Court is going to ask for witnesses, and then, of course, if you see things that happened in your place, you can come forward and say, yes, this is what happened, and this is what I videoed. So it is very, very important.
All right, Mr. Amachree, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Our time is fast spent. Dennis Amachree is former DSS director. Thank you for being here with us, and we're hoping that Saturday will go smoothly.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And that's it on this side of the clock, Lagos. We will go for a break, bring you the news. On the other side, we'll talk about the Naira redesign situation, and we're having Barrister Jide Ologun here in the studio with us. Dr. Jide Ologun, he's going to be here with us to talk about the legacy or the legalities around it. Stay with us.
You are listening to your number one station for talk.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
There is a huge difference between the relative experience of salary earners and those of business owners and entrepreneurs. Someone who has never had cause to set up a business of his, who has never had cause to source for funds, turn it around, pay salaries, pay back the loan, and still make profit cannot be expected to be hands-on when saddled with an economy the size of Lagos. Experience that hasn't curbed Lagos's traffic in 24 years of their reign. Experience that hasn't addressed Lagos's perennial flood. Experience that currently leaves us with over 2 million out-of-school children. The duo of Jando and Funke have been investing in Lagos's economy for about 2 decades, running their personal businesses, employing people with track records of success. Lagos needs a breath of fresh air. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
Guy, I'm in front of your household. God! What is this I'm looking at?
How fun.
Last. Now you this changer at the pillow. Wait, wasn't it 2 days ago that you bashed your car? And now you're driving another one?
Oh boy, now blessings on blessings on blessings.
Hey, you just upgraded like that.
Guy, I beg be quiet. Is that how people buy cars? It's the car my insurance company, AXA Mansa, gave me while my car is getting fixed.
It's a lie. AXA Mansa gave you makeshift car.
Yeah.
The same company that took your car to Better Auto Shop all within 24 hours. Guy, why you no show me the way? Before my insurance company make me pack car for 3 months, they jump boss round Lagos.
AXA Mentored Moto Insurance is the one-time insurance feels like an upgrade and leaves you wanting to say thank you for what you truly deserve. Visit www.axamentor.com or call 0700 AXA Mentor today. AXA Mentor.
My guy, make we dey go now. Our guys dey wait o.
Bros, my body no gree cooperate today o.
Which kind yawa be that? Abeg come sit down, Joe.
Sit down?
Yes.
The thing no gree me now.
Abi that your pile wahala don come again?
Oh, pile wahala no be small thing o. Na so e go dey start you. If it swell up or to dey comot blood sef, to sit down sef, na gbege. That's why I say make you tackle pile problem with Anudol suppositories. Anudol suppositories get bismuth subgalate, balsam peru, and zinc oxide to tackle pile, so you go fit dey kampe to do your work sharp.
Oh yeah, my guys. Make we go. Mother do good. One bottle for my guys.
Anudol suppositories. Now your relief for pile. Anudol suppositories. Now daily need industries they make am. Make una read the product leaflet o. If after 2 days you know better, go see your doctor.
Oh, the only detergent that keeps me bright and fresh. I know they waste time to wash. I thought my clothes deserve the best, so why go less? You can't wash a lot with a little Viva. Use Viva. Don't waste your time, don't waste your money. Use Viva. Viva, oh Viva. I love my Viva. Don't need no other. I love my Viva forever. Viva, oh Viva. I love my Viva. Don't need no other. I love my Viva forever. Viva, oh Viva.
quality cleaning powder from Aspira.
There is a huge difference between the relative experience of salary earners and those of business owners and entrepreneurs. Someone who has never had cause to set up a business of his, who has never had cause to source for funds, turn it around, pay salaries, pay back the loan, and still make profit cannot be expected to be hands-on when saddled with an economy the size of Lagos. Experience that hasn't curbed Lagos's traffic in 24 years of their reign. Experience that hasn't addressed Lagos's perennial flood. Experience that currently leaves us with over 2 million out-of-school children. The duo of Jando and Funke have been investing in Lagos's economy for about 2 decades, running their personal businesses, employing peoples with track records of success. Lagos needs a breath of fresh air. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
Welcome back to your number one talk, news, and sports station. This is Nigeria Info.
When the news breaks.
When people need to be heard.
With interviews that matter.
Trust your number one talk station to have you covered.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Doesn't stop. Join the conversation on the air and online. Twitter at Nigeria Info FM. Facebook Nigeria Info 99.3. And on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos. Let's talk.
It's 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
The headline news on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info.
Headline news on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Former Deputy Director of State Services Dennis Amachree accuses INEC of sabotaging its process in the presidential and National Assembly elections last Saturday. News Agency of Nigeria reports that INEC plans to file a suit at the Court of Appeal to reconfigure Beaver's machines ahead of the elections. INEC to review logistics and technology deployment to help eliminate hiccups associated with the conduct of the elections and upload the results from polling units. U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria Mary Beth Leonard says Nigeria's presidential and National Assembly elections failed to meet the expectations of Nigerians. PDP National Chairman Iyorchia Ayu and some governors of the party set to go to a protest at INEC headquarters in Abuja today. Traditional rulers in Etiosa local government area of Lagos vow to work for victory for the APC governorship candidate Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Governorship candidate of the Labour Party, Gbadebo Rhodes Viver, says he's an original Lagosian and a true son of his father, Olawale Rhodes Viver. Labour Party in Oyo State adopts Governor Seyi Makinde of the People's Democratic Party as its candidate for the March 11 governorship election, but tells supporters to vote its candidates in the state assembly polls. Meanwhile, the All Progressive Congress in Oyo State says there is no group within its fold that endorsed Governor Seyi Makinde's re-election bid. Business operators across the country say they are anxious to hear from President Muhammadu Buhari and all the central banks over the validity of the old note. And finally, in sports, Liverpool hands Manchester United the worst defeat in 92 years with a 7-0 thrashing of the rivals last night. I am Maryann, Okon, and these are the headlines.
.3
99.3
Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
This is The Voice Note on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
You know, it echoed in this room. Look, Aliko and I go back a long way. He's done phenomenally well. About 2 decades, done phenomenally well. Jim, Mike Adenuga and co. Let me tell you what they all have in common. They are all very combative personalities. Because of that, no regulator will go to them and try nonsense, because most of them know how to deal with that regulator. We have to move beyond that, making Nigeria an economy only for the few people who are very combative. Some of us too are combative enough, so people know what's in regulation. Now let me continue, because those we are destroying are the 22-year-old entrepreneurs, the 25-year-old entrepreneurs. This economy is rigged against the youth and is not going to grow. When Aliko and I were 30, we were allowed to grow. Today, we're killing the youth from growing. So it's not going to grow. That's the point I'm making. And the reason, the things we have to correct, you see, any regulator that wants to get applause, just go after some people, destroy some businesses, and the more you destroy, the more they hail you. It's even proof that you're working. That's a paradigm shift. We have to get out of that complete nonsense. Without that, it will negate any monetary policy and everything else.
Morning Crossfire on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
This is the nation's #1 talk news and sports radio station. Welcome to the extended version of the Morning Crossfire. I'm Maryann, Okon, and my guest right now joining us virtually, still here in Lagos, Dr. Mr. Ologun. Thank you very much for joining us. I've called you doctor. I'll soon add pastor and bishop now, and everything will now be complete. And high chief. Jide Ologun is an attorney, and this morning we're going to be looking at the situation, of course, with the Naira redesign and the Supreme Court's judgment. Mr. Ologun, first things first, this is not the first time the Supreme Court has gotten involved in this Naira redesign situation. First things first, some states and their governors had taken the CBN and the federal government to court on this matter. And the first time that the court ruling was not adhered to, we heard excuses like, Mr. President was not necessarily joined in the suits or, the action. And so it didn't affect him. And so he wasn't necessarily obliged to adhere. But then I know a little bit about the law, even though I'm just, not as learned as you are. There are those who says the Supreme Court's judgment is final. And one way or the other, it has to be adhered to. But give us some background into this, and then, of course, the most recent of the Supreme Court judgment.
You know what happened? If you check our Constitution, Section 232 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it stipulates that the Federation can be sued by the states where you have disputes. And we are talking of a policy formulated and implemented by the Federation, though implemented through an agency relationship, talking about CBN, which is an organ of the Federation. And by virtue of our laws, you cannot sue CBN directly from the Supreme Court. You can only start from the Federal High Court. But knowing the journey time in the judicial intervention in the country, a matter you start in the Federal High Court may arrive the Court of Appeal in 5 years, arrive the Supreme Court in 10 years. So, and since it had to do with policy formulation and implementation, the states decided to go to the Supreme Court because there is that provision that the states can go to Supreme Court, because Supreme Court is the court of first and final jurisdiction when it comes to the states and the federation. And some argued that that has to be when there is dispute. And the big question is the crisis generated by the implementation of that policy. Did it not create dispute between the states and the federation? And having said all this, the interim injunction granted by the Supreme Court was binding on the Federation, represented by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. So if we argue that CBN wasn't a party, CBN is not bound. But in master-agent relationship. The master can now instruct the agent that, hey, the Supreme Court has given this instruction. I want to comply. You also, by extension, we call it vicarious responsibility. Go and comply. And by express performance also, the president, to an extent, went back to now amend the instruction already given out by the CBN, saying that, okay, we are not going to render 1,500 and 200 naira invalid altogether. Now the old 200 naira can be returned and become legal tender. Because if you look at Section 20 of the CBN Act, it is the CBN that has the prerogative to declare what is legal tender. But you now saw the CBN taking instruction from the president. In fact, the cut-off line was supposed to be 31st of January. But the CBN governor went to the president in Daura to receive instruction that extended to the 10th of February before the Supreme Court gave that directive. So we now found the situation where the interim order of the Supreme Court was not complied with. The governor of state giving their own directive, governor of CBN giving his own directive, president giving his own directive, and we had a state of anarchy. You know, people always say we should not slip into state. What is state of anarchy? Anarchy is when you don't even know who is in authority. You see, and if you now look at the hardship, we talk, even the security officials advise that this thing is going to affect us. The military engagement in the bandit-ridden societies, they are not cashless there. They need cash. You talk about welfare of the people, food, you talk about healthcare. Many people died. Many were discharged forcefully because they couldn't pay. You talk about meeting basic needs. You talk about Naira black market, having to buy Naira with Naira. You talk about failure of infrastructure, and you combine that with the fuel scarcity and everything. And when you look at the role of the Supreme Court as the final court in the land, the first thing you consider is the provision in the ground norm as the primary purpose of government. And Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended stipulates that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. You saw the way banks were being attacked. So there was added insecurity to what we have in the land. You consider how people are suffering. Many marriages have broken down, different kinds of crises. That touches on the welfare of the people. What about the breach of my fundamental human rights? Why should I have millions of naira in the bank and all the bank proudly gives me is 5,000 naira? What will I do with 5,000 naira? I mean, why should you arrest my money? So these are issues. So now we have a battle between the two arms of government. We have three: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. And if nobody went to the Supreme Court will not have spoken. So you have brought a matter before them, and they must just intervene. And that intervention must be in the, in the direction of not throwing the nation into chaos. And that is where we are now.
Okay, let me backtrack a bit. Going back to the reasons that we were given as a country for the redesign of the Naira and, of course, the mopping up of cash. One of the major reasons we heard was to fight vote buying. Let's go back, rewind to 2 Saturdays ago. Did we see any resultant effect? Because again, if it was for vote buying, politicians were again blamed by the same CBN boss for hoarding the new Naira notes. How did it get to them if you were trying to deal with them not getting their hands on these monies? So was this not an exercise in futility? And how is the common person suffering for the sins of the corrupt politician? Make it make sense, sir.
Very brilliant question there. The politicians were not in any way prevented from embarking on their campaigns. We've seen videos of what may be termed vote buying in kind, materials given out to electorates. And like you mentioned, you insinuated also, the politicians may not have problems accessing this money. we've read about a bank holding some billions of naira and stuff like that, and we have held the elections. It may, to an extent, affect the extent of vote buying, but elections have taken place. And let me say this clearly. In change management, you have 4 critical stages. The first stage is the stage of shock. The next stage is the stage of anger. And the next one is acceptance and commitment. And that's why you need to evaluate the ecosystem of your change management campaign. And from what the Supreme Court eventually came up with most recently, it alluded to the fact that, you did not carry out sufficient consultation. It was after the implementation and the crisis that the federal government now summoned the Council of State. We have the Federal Executive Council there. We have the National Economic Council. In fact, the Federal Minister of Finance initially said she was not in the picture. And there are these 5 C's in change management, 5 C's, talking about ABC. You talk about competence. How prepared was the federal government to drive this cashless policy? Infrastructurally, the implementation is a failure. The e-platform started crashing. So did you prepare? Were you competent to even handle? Let's assume we are driving towards cashless economy. And this is not the first time we are talking about cashless economy in Nigeria. I think the debut was in 2012, and the government had to test run it in some states, metropolitan areas, before plunging it on the nation. And we have not even fully developed the backup infrastructure. And you now talk about the next C, which is communication. Did you communicate the orientation and everything? Then the next one is the conflict. How were you going to manage the conflict? You have seen now how you now have the governor of states giving directive, the governor of central bank taking another position, the president himself taking another. How did you plan to manage this eventual conflict? Then you talk about confidence. Did the government come out with a trust capital that will give them the confidence to implement? And that's why many said, you are just after vote buying. You are just out to stop politicians. Didn't the CBN governor himself express interest in becoming the president of the country himself? And that made that implementation vindictive. So you need that level of confidence to come out and be bold about what you are doing. And what fuels that confidence is the 5th C, which is conscience. So how conscientious is the implementation of that policy? And these are questions citizens are asking. And of course, you can run all this by looking at the impact. Because if you permit me, I'll talk about components of the theory of change. You have inputs, you have outputs, you have outcomes, and you have impact. So what is the impact on our economy? Even those things you claim that you want to prevent. Bandits were seen in a video parading the new notes, and they have the new notes in abundance. So have you succeeded in that area? We've heard about people hoarding the Naira. In fact, counterfeiting came the same week that we claim to have released the Naira into the society. So why did you not look at all this while considering the formulation and implementation of that policy?
Mr. Ologun, let me just jump in here. Sorry to distort your train of thoughts, but something very important just stuck out. People keep calling this a policy. Because you're a legal person, let's look at it legally. A policy is supposed to not just have a framework, but have a document that supports it. Where is that policy document? The CBN keeps calling this, the Naira redesign monetary policy. Where is the document? Because there has to be a reference point. Where is it? Or did somebody just roll out of his bed and come and just come up with this? And now we're all thrown into this chaos as you've described it.
No, if you look at Section 20 of the CBN Act, it gives CBN the power to declare what is legal tender. And I believe that, as reported by the CBN governor, the change of currency it should be a routine thing. In fact, they probably should have done this. All right. And so when they will always find a legal framework to support what they are doing. But we are talking about the implementation now. Look at what happened in the United Kingdom. after the demise of the Queen, there was a need to rebrand the pound by bringing in the insignia of the King Charles III in replacement of that of the Queen Elizabeth. And the full implementation will not come until the middle of 2024. So you can imagine how they have evaluated that change management to make it successful. And because of the affiliation of the affinity of Australia to the UK, which is historical, which may not have time to deal with here, Australian government is also rebranding some of their currencies. And it's being done in line with the old currencies. You see, so when you look at all this, it's not the change itself, but how the change has been carried out. And when Governor Nasir El-Rufai was expressing his own anger on the unprecedented cruel situation, in his words, that his people are going through and the livelihoods being thrown into crisis, he tried as an architect to describe the position of CBN and evaluate it. He said that the policy itself, let's give it that name, was designed to fail. According to him, according to CBN rather, that the total currency in circulation in Nigeria was estimated 3.2 trillion at the end of 2022. And according to the same central bank, 2.1 trillion has been withdrawn as early as February. So success in mopping up excess liquidity. And CBN claimed that 700 billion naira is the amount of cash needed for their functioning vision of a cashless economy. So can 700 billion naira sustain the economy of Nigeria that is largely physical cash driven? So these are issues. So, and in project management, if your project fails, it fails ab initio, like we say in law, from inception. You are expected proactively to have seen every process of it. What are the likely challenges? And we are not talking of just a one-man business here. We are talking of a government that should have the brilliant brains, the consultants, and everything to everyone to advise them. Even in the Word of God, you know, the Lord gave an admonition that if you are building, sit down first to count the cost, so that you don't build midway and fail and people begin to mock you. So, and that is why many are of the perception that, okay, maybe this policy was implemented purely for political reasons. You see, so these are issues. You need to test run and look at the impact. Then some of the questions. Look at the case of fuel scarcity. Why should a nation that has the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa, that has oil and gas in abundance, that has the first refinery was commissioned in 1965, shortly after our political independence. We have about 3 more refineries. Why are these refineries not working? I was reading a report that last year we lost about $10 billion to fuel subsidy. I read a report, Saudi Arabia brought in about $326 billion from oil revenue, and yet NNPC limited at the time remitted zero amount to the federation account. So these are issues that will worry you. And when your economy is driven by political consideration, then the conscience of that policy is faulted. Okay. But I understand the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces apologized to his people in Katsina. He didn't know that people were going through hardship, and that's another issue entirely.
Yeah. In fact, I want us to address that totally when we come back from this break. We're going on a quick break, Mr. Ologun, but when we come back, because many people have reacted to Mr. President's apology, and just like some people would say to INEC, apologizing for the hiccups for February 25, it's somewhat of a medicine after death. What does this apology do for us right now? And Will it help to ameliorate our sufferings? These are some of the questions that are being raised, as opposed to Mr. President's apology. Jide Ologun is a lawyer, and he's joined us on the Morning Crossfire to look at the Naira redesign and, of course, the adverse effect it's having on Nigeria, not just the country and its people, but even on the economy. We'll be right back after this break.
Talk is what we do.
You know, the youth of Nigeria have historically been apathetic towards the electoral process. There's no way for the youth to participate in mainstream fields like oil and gas, banking, and so on. The youth are actively excluded from those fields. And so we just created our own way in tech.
Informed analysis, reliable and accurate.
We actually advocate you get your eyes checked at least once a year. When you go for an eye check, the routine things they do for you is to check your visual acuity. Visual acuity is how good you see. A lot of us don't actually know that we don't see so well, but because, like I said earlier, we can count money, we think we're doing very well.
Africa's #1 station for talk.
Senate President Ahmed Lawan assured Nigerians that no citizen will be shortchanged in the distribution and application of the COVID-19.
Conversation.
Is it possible that COVID can affect somebody psychologically?
Oh, absolutely. With the COVID pandemic, we have also been experiencing a mental health pandemic, coping, and generally people's psychological health has been affected.
For the strongest opinion.
What that has been reintroduced is equivalent to the same side because there's no reform ab initio. So this one that is just going to have in Nigeria is large-scale industrial farming, which of course is what can make food very adequate within the country.
Your #1 station for talk. 99.3 Nigeria Info.
There is a huge difference between the relative experience of salary earners and those of business owners and entrepreneurs. Someone who has never had cause to set up a business of his, who has never had cause to source for funds, turn it around, pay salaries, pay back the loan, and still make profit cannot be expected to be hands-on when saddled with an economy the size of Lagos. Experience that hasn't curbed Lagos's traffic in 24 years of their reign. Experience that hasn't addressed Lagos's perennial flood. Experience that currently leaves us with over 2 million out-of-school children. The duo of Jando and Funke have been investing in Lagos's economy for about 2 decades, running their personal businesses, employing peoples with track records of success. Lagos needs a breath of fresh air. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
Moves must be made. My people just to work hard. Dreams and challenges motivate us. But sometimes, when the journey gets tiring, all we need is something to push our limits.
Energy drink. What you need to push your limits. Push your limits.
Guy, I'm in front of your household.
What is this I'm looking at?
How fun.
Last. Now you this changer at the pillow. Wait, wasn't it 2 days ago that you bashed your car? And now you're driving another one?
Oh boy, now blessings on blessings on blessings.
Hey, you just upgraded like that.
Guy, I beg be quiet. Is that how people buy cars? It's the car my insurance company, AXA Mansa, gave me while my car is getting fixed.
It's a lie. AXA Mansa gave you makeshift car.
Yeah.
The same company that took your car to Better Auto Shop all within 24 hours.
Guy,
why you no show me the way? Before my insurance company make me pack car for 3 months, they jump boss round Lagos.
AXA Mentored Moto Insurance is the one-time insurance feels like an upgrade and leaves you wanting to say thank you for what you truly deserve. Visit www.axamentor.com or call 0700 AXA Mentor today. AXA Mentor.
My guy, make we dey go now. Our guys dey wait oh.
Bros, my body no gree cooperate today.
which kayawa be that? I beg, come sit down, Joe.
Sit down?
Yes.
The thing no gree me now.
Abi, that your pile wahala don't come again?
Oh, pile wahala no be small thing, oh. Now so you go to start you. If it swell up or to the commode blood self, to sit down self, now gbege. That's why I say make you tackle pile problem with Anudol suppositories. Anudol suppositories get bismuth subgalate, balsam peru, and zinc oxide to tackle pile. So you go fit the canque to do your work sharp.
Oh yeah, my guys. Make we go. Madam do good. One bottle for my guys.
Anudol suppositories. Now your relief for pile. Anudol suppositories. Now daily need industries they make am. Make una read the product leaflet too. If after 2 days you know better, go see your doctor.
I have sent my account.
To where?
Better send your own.
To where now?
I will collect mine and leave you.
From where and when?
You like questions, Sha?
I like answers better.
Questions are important as the answers you get. It takes 1,460 days to determine if you are right or wrong. Choose to be right. Choose to vote. Choose not to sell your vote. Choose democracy. Choose to win. Win because you can vote and choose.
This message is brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria.
My people, you make we come together. Make we vote for better. So Lagos State, you go better. Yeah. We don't tire for low level. Make we move to the next level. Yeah. Make we vote Labour Party. Vote that Labour. Labour for governor. For better Lagos. Oh yeah, make we vote Labour Party. Vote that Labour. Labour for governor. Of Lagos State. Carry go. Labour carry go.
Dear Lagosians, we need a better Lagos. Vote me, Gbadebo Roads Rival, also known as GRV, as your next governor of Lagos State. Vote Labour Party top to bottom. God bless you.
At Access, we are 28,000 employees, 180,000 agents, 700 branches, 180,000 connected POS, and 2,883 ATMs strong, serving our more than 52 million customers in Africa, Europe, Asia, and UAE across 17 countries. With a total asset of 15 trillion naira, we are the largest bank in Nigeria and top 10 in Africa. So, to the determined side hustler, the happy-go-lucky youth, the tech-savvy entrepreneur, the moms and dads with bright lives to build, the market woman with big dreams for growth, the global citizens with their roots in our soils, we are here to stay. Through thick and thin, we stand with you. Access. More than banking.
In an effort to reduce overcrowding and ensure stress-free voting experience on election day, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has moved voters from overcrowded polling units to less congested ones within the same location. All eligible voters can visit cvr.inecnigeria.org/VVS or voters.inecnigeria.org to confirm the polling unit where their names appear on the voters register to vote on election day. Also note that the list of eligible voters in each of the 176,846 polling units will be physically displayed at each polling unit nationwide before the day of election. INEC is therefore encouraging all eligible voters to verify their polling unit using the various options before they go and vote on election day. This message is brought to you by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) and the Center for Democracy and Development (CDD), with support from the Osiwa Africa Foundation.
There is a huge difference between the relative experience of salary earners and those of business owners and entrepreneurs. Someone who has never had cause to set up a business of his, who has never had cause to source for funds, turn it around, pay salaries, pay back the loan, and still make profit cannot be expected to be hands-on when saddled with an economy the size of Lagos. Experience that hasn't curbed Lagos's traffic in 24 years of their reign. Experience that hasn't addressed Lagos's perennial flood. Experience that currently leaves us with over 2 million out-of-school children. The duo of Jando and Funke have been investing in Lagos's economy for about 2 decades, running their personal businesses, employing peoples with track records of success. Lagos needs a breath of fresh air. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
Can you send your child to a public primary school in Lagos? Before you answer that question, please listen to this. In 2019, Governor Sanwo-Olu introduced EcoExcel, Excellence in Child Education and Learning, for public primary schools as a new system of learning and teaching, absolutely free of learning fees. Teachers have been retrained to use technology to teach pupils in their classrooms, and these are the results. An average primary 3 pupil is now reading at the same level as an average primary 5 pupil just before the launch of EcoExcel. In the just concluded National Common Entrance Examination, the top public primary school pupil scored 198, just 3 points behind the national best of 201 out of 210. The EcoExcel program was also recently crowned as the most innovative digital learning platform of the year, justifying Lagos State's investment in education. You too can be proud of your children by enrolling them in Lagos State Public Primary Schools today for the new academic session.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We are back.
We're back on 99.3 Nigeria Info. 99.3
99.3
Nigeria Info. Let's talk. This is Morning Crossfire on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
And we are back. It's still the Crossfire extension. Today, Monday. Yes, as usual, we have an extension into the 9 o'clock hour. And we've been talking about the extended validity of the Naira notes and what the Supreme Court has said. But then the question still lingers. Will the CBN and the federal government comply? My guest is Jide Ologun. He is a lawyer, and we've been talking about all of the legalities around this. But Mr. Ologun, I asked a question before we went on the break, and I really want to hear your thoughts on it.
I've answered you.
Okay. You answered the question before we went on the break. No, I did ask the question, before I went on that break about... but anyway, quickly, let's look at arrests that were being made at the time. We saw the EFCC, with post about arresting bank managers, and they didn't tell us. They say a certain bank and that was hoarding. If we really want to, deter people from breaking these rules, we need to be able to name, shame, and prosecute. But all we saw was just some dramatics, splashed on the pages of newspapers, as opposed to us seeing people used as scapegoats. That's on the one hand. We're also having to deal with excessive charges. INEC, before I say INEC has really done a number on us. All we can think about is INEC. We've seen the CBN push for a cashless economy. But then it looks more like we're putting the cart before the horse, where our online platforms are making us so miserable. The charges are excessive. You pay for one thing and a huge amount of money is deducted. But then the services that we're given is nothing to write home about. So these are issues that need to be dealt with. How do we also get across to CBN to make sure that these things are put in place if we must even go forward with this so-called cashless system?
You see, thank you for the brilliant question. Firstly, when you talk about implementing our laws, it's a serious problem that we have in the country. And at the macro level, we don't appear like a nation prepared to fight corruption. There is provision for it in our constitution. If you look at section 15 subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of office. And for this purpose, we have law enforcement agencies. But let me ask this simple question. We have read so much about oil theft, how they steal the oil, the fact that they've constructed facilities to the ocean. But who are the oil thieves? We are still waiting to know them. The nation admitted knowing about 400 sponsors of terrorism in Nigeria. Who are they? We are still waiting. Meanwhile, in Dubai, and Dubai is not a direct victim of terrorism of Boko Haram, 6 sponsors of Boko Haram were identified in Dubai, prosecuted, and all jailed. And let me say this, in the criminal justice ecosystem, there are 3 very important pillars. You talk about thorough investigation, you talk about diligent prosecution, and you talk about a committed judiciary. So sometimes it starts and ends with arrest, and there is no prosecution. So what do? And under the Constitution, we have what we call presumption of innocence. So if you even accuse someone of committing a crime, that allegation must be proved beyond all reasonable doubt. And how do you prove that? Through diligent prosecution. So these are issues of attack. I mean, if we were to go by allegations, none of the presidential candidates should be featured at the elections. You see, and I am of the position. Yeah, you talking of Pandora box, talking about drug, talking about MPV, there was even a time someone came up that Atiku is not a Nigerian citizen after he has been Controller General of Custom, after he has been Vice President. So we appear not to be serious as a nation, and I say that with all due respect. So when it comes to fighting crime, we are still far away from it. But it appears that when the government is prepared to fight, they will fight. So maybe what is absent is the political will to do the needful.
Okay, we want Lagosians to chime in and be part of the conversation. And every other Nigerian that's listening from anywhere in the world, if you have been, felt the pinch, if not even a bite, of what's been going on in our economy and, of course, with the Naira, then, of course, this conversation does concern you. Call 0700 993 993 993. That's 0700 993 993 993. If you got questions for my guests, you have comments, 0700 993 993 993. If you're a lady, you can call 01465 7190. That's 01465 7190. Tweet at Nigeria Info FM with the hashtag MCF, or better still, you could join the conversation. We're live on Facebook, live on our YouTube. Just go on the live stream and post your comments. Or if you are listening from us outside the country, we're Nigeria Info on Skype. Call us and share your thoughts with us. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Maryann.
Good morning.
This is Pastor Ladipo.
Pastor Ladipo, go ahead. You have 60 seconds.
Okay, I think my own take on this issue is this. If the Supreme Court has passed the judgment, have they communicate that judgment to the central bank governor and the presidency? Because it seems the central bank governor is claiming he has not seen anything from the Supreme Court. That is what I want to ask your guest. And at this point, what should be the next thing that the Supreme Court or the people should do? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Ladipo, for your question. Mr. Ologun, let me take one more call and then you answer both questions if there be any other question. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Maryann.
Morning, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm Chooks calling from Festac.
Chooks, you got 60 seconds. Go ahead.
Please, this cashless policy they are talking about. Please, for some time now, the transfers, we pay more now when we do transfers. So I don't see whereby in a country we are living in, they bring up a policy, and that policy is affecting us badly. This cashless policy, I don't think is a good option now, because presently we are suffering in this country. Bringing this cash policy into this our present condition is far worse than what we're already experiencing. Maybe you're budgeting to pay for a little amount of something. Now, when you go to people to make transfer, you transfer more, and they will tell you they can't give you change. That's just one thing. They say they can't give you change. You have to spend all that particular amount you're transferring to them. You have to spend it all. So I don't think cashless policy is really working in this our country. Thank you.
All right, Pastor Ologun, care to respond? Pastor Ologun, can you hear me? Pastor Ologun, are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, while we wait for you to connect your audio, let's take another call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Emeka speaking from my papa.
Emeka, you got
cashless
60
policy.
seconds.
It is only in Nigeria. They start from the tail end to start to solve their problem. See, cashless policy, if it is in other parts of the world, if government want to sanitize our election, do you know what the citizens will do? Those that are doing big projects will stop. If you have millions in the bank, you go to the bank, you withdraw your immediate need. But are we like that? Please, look around the world, ask questions. There are no countries that have Nigerian character. Personal interest, that is our major problem. In Nigeria, some that have like 10, 20 million will go and withdraw the whole money, keep in their house, and be talking trash. I have this money, I have it, be claiming with it. But in other parts of the world, they go to the bank and withdraw. You might have billions. Withdraw your immediate need. Our problem is personal interest. Not that the people in government are doing the thing that is good, but it is them, we vote criminals, thieves, that has given us money. But for the better people, will not vote. And after voting for criminals...
50 seconds is over. Thank you very much. Always try as much as possible to keep to your time. Pastor Ologun, we had a question from Pastor Ladipo, and he was asking about, the money, the cashless policy situation. And then, of course, the second person who's making his thoughts known as to us always starting to solve problems from the tail. Care to comment?
Like we have all been saying, there's what we call the social contract between the government and the citizens, and we are all expected to collaborate. But basically, the government appears to have the bigger stature of showing direction, of showing leadership. The comment passed here, in some countries of the world, cashless economy is working fluently. I was in the UK on vacation, and I needed to buy an iPhone, so I brought out, hard pounds, and they were looking at me that, why don't you lease this phone, pay a little bit with your credit card, insure it? And I told them I'm from Nigeria, I don't live here. So for them, it's strange when you carry cash. But like one of our wonderful callers mentioned now, you brag when you carry cash around here. So we need to look at all this. And then what we are saying is that, you see, but before you even formulate and implement any policy, it is because you have found a gap that will lead to improvement in the society. I made reference to when the government rose up to shut the land borders. Some of the reasons given was to help farmers with local capacity development and to prevent proliferation of ammunition into the country. But did we succeed in any of this? No. People were bringing in ammunition on camels' back. My president said some splinter rebel bodies were bringing ammunition from Libya. And I said, why didn't they take this ammunition to Rwanda or to Ghana or to Benin Republic? So these are issues. Look at when we reacted to the action of Twitter and we banned Twitter. Who lost? Nigerian government lost. Now, like I said earlier, we are likely to be losing about $18 million dollars on a monthly basis because of this cashless economy policy, this cash swap policy. Even the chief economic advisor to the president, Dr. Doyin Salami, disagreed with the estimate of the central bank. And he believed that at least 2 trillion naira of currency must be pumped back into the economy to sustain the economy. In fact, other experts are saying even if it's 1.2 trillion, but when you are saying you are pumping 700 billion, where's even the 700 billion? And I spoke about confidence and conscience the other time. You hear an instruction from central bank that, okay, banks, commercial banks should pay their customers 20,000 naira. You get to the same bank, you collect 3,000 naira. In fact, some banks on Allen Avenue, where my office is, they've shut their gates because they don't have the money. You phone the bank manager will, and they cannot come out to say it. I mean, okay, who is going to be responsible now for the banks that have been burnt down and destroyed and things like that? So we need to think things. You see, governance is about service to the citizens. So before you implement any policy, sit down. My sister, my lovely patriots, we are talking of a government. The ministers are well paid. The president is well paid. The attorney general is well paid. The CBN governor is well paid. We have MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies that are expected to support the government in succeeding in office. And what is the success of governance? That you enhance the lifestyle of your people, the fortunes of your people. I mean, I did a research. When you look at the most common indicators of development used, you talk about gross domestic product, gross national product, GNP per capita, birth and death rate, human development index, and you now look at some countries with best governance profile. You look at Norway. How do they treat their citizens? You look at New Zealand. You look at Finland. You talk about Switzerland. You talk about Denmark, Luxembourg, Canada. They don't need to travel out of the country to know what is going on. I mean, this is Saudi Arabia. You know, right now, like I mentioned that earlier, you know, and it's quite instructive for me. Our president should be in Qatar now for United Nations Conference on least developed countries. I mean, with the over 40 resources we have, we should not be amongst the undeveloped nations. We are not talking about least developed countries. And what is the anchor point? That millions of people in these countries, including my country, are still burdened with poverty, lack of food, besides healthcare and education. And it shouldn't be spoken of Nigeria at all. Perhaps our leaders need to go back to the classrooms, and I say this with all due respect, and learn the essence of God. Why are they there? It's about service to the people. People are suffering. People are going through hardship, you know, and quite a number of our citizens, they live on daily wages. So where is the money to even patronize them? You know, so these are issues. So even with your cashless policy or whatever you are, make sure you are prepared for it. There is this wise maxim that says it is better to measure 10 times and cut once than to measure once and cut 10 times. Don't cut your nose to spite your face.
Okay. We have just 2 minutes on the clock. Let me see if I can just take a few messages on WhatsApp before we say our goodbyes. Somebody here on WhatsApp says, "Good morning, guys. It's unfortunate that our banks have failed us in this time because of lack of discretion, but prefer playing politics at the detriment of the economy and with the lives of millions of Nigerians." And he says that this is a lame duck sector. The entire sector is remotely controlled, while I believe the destiny is in our own hands. Your message is very long, sir, so I'm not going to be able to read it to the end. Brian Ore, thank you very much. This one says, "Good morning, Honorable Senior." Okay, Mr. Balogun. When I hear people refer to the CBN governor as a Mayfair, I really agree. I'm sure you meant that as a joke. That policy was brought in dead. The policy is a stranglehold on the masses. A neighbor whose child was rushed to the hospital last month lost his child because he could not withdraw needed funds for the emergency surgery the little child needed. Thank God for the considerate doctor. Okay, you say you almost lost his child, not that he lost the child. And you're saying sad historical reference points. This will be for our future generations. Ngozi Kunye Bagu, thank you very much for your message. This one says, "Good morning, Crossfire crew. This ding-dong activities between the federal government and the Supreme Court is taking a great toll on the masses. Please, they should call a spade a spade. We're suffering in the midst of plenty." Reverend Uyema from Ikotu. Mr. Ologun, I have to say thank you because time is not on our side. Thank you so much for being here and, of course, doing justice to this topic. We're hoping that the CBN would find better ways of easing, the stress that this policy has, so-called policy, has put on Nigerians. And hopefully we will have light at the end of the tunnel. Always a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you. God bless Nigeria Info. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Jide Ologun is a lawyer, and we have been reassessing the situation with the new Naira notes and the validity that the Supreme Court has given to it. But again, the question still lingers. Will the federal government and the CBN adhere? Well, that's it on the show this morning. My name is Maryann, Okon, Lagos. Thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow is another day. I'll be back here at 5 a.m. on the Crossfire. But don't forget, follow Nigeria Info on all of its platforms, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and on our YouTube. Do subscribe on our YouTube and follow all our programs. Download the Nigeria Info FM mobile application. That way you can take us everywhere you go in the world, and you can listen to us on 99.3. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, MIMIEYO. That's Mimi Ayo. And we can have more and more conversations on the other side. But you can search for Maryann Okon anywhere else. Have a beautiful Monday. Right after now is What's Up Lagos. Yes, with Stretch and Feta. But at 3 o'clock, we will have Hard Facts. At 12, Joyce will come here with the sunny side. Have a beautiful Monday.
The Talk. And I want to assume that you would run because I want to give the listeners context for the conversation.
In 2019, you were running mate to Atiku Abubakar. What did you learn then that you will not repeat this time?
Yes, when is the president coming out to address us?
There's a few things. One, I have a burden and a passion for young people.
The fact that you have elected a man does not mean then you begin to order him around. The president will do whatever is good for the country at any given time.
Mr. Adeshino, isn't the president responsible to the people?
What should the next president do to root out stakeholders who are complicit?
You fire those. Those that need to be fired get fired.
It's looking like a brand new Chelsea, attacking with so much fluidity. And what can you say about that, Martin? I know you follow Chelsea quite closely.
I live close to the Chelsea training ground. That's what you mean by that. I'm not.